Origin Chance, and this is the aircraft that doesn't eject bullet shells. But I don't know what you think. Yeah, this is about A10 Warthog. I didn't know it doesn't eject bullets, so where like it collects it inside. Won't like like velocity of it would be too much. Like what is it, like some kind of a strong bucket they created that just catches it or something? Because it really shoots really fast, right? 30mm rounds, which are like really powerful at a level that it really hurts its like flight and things when it shoots, right? Because of like how much pressure it creates. Yeah, A10 Warthog is one of the most insane plane ever made. They're trying to retire it, obviously, but I'm one of those people who thinks like that was during the time when they thought like nothing's gonna happen, no war's gonna come up, and just like let's just go advanced type of way. And like F-16 and things can do certain jobs like A-10, but no, I don't think so. I think when it comes to like attack support planes, you can't really beat A-10, even though there are people who love it and there are people who really hate it, right? But the design of it, you can improve it. I can imagine another plane being developed like A-10 or like existing plane improved to be better than that. But right now A-10 I think is best for whatever it does, right? With the steel bucket thing that protects the pilot, and like it's supposed to absorb bullets, right? I think A-10 is the only plane right now, I mean, compared to something like F-series planes, which are not supposed to do that, because why would F-16 being an attack plane feels weird, but I don't think it has that bucket thing, right? So if it tries to do attack support type of plane, when it gets shot down and like pilot is at risk. So in A-10 that's like more of a protection there, and it's just like it's really well plane made for this purpose, right? This is Know What You Think is a great channel. I like the engineering aspect from this channel, right? There's like Know What You Think, who basically physically goes to places which are low, talk about tech like this, like how A-10 is, how other planes are. And there's other channel like Real Engineering things. I love this. As a engineer in me, it really just feels giddy whenever I see videos like this. So let's watch this one.
Most people think the A10 Warthog is all about its gun. But what's really impressive about it goes beyond the gun and even beyond the aircraft itself. It's about the mission. Taking off, attacking targets, coming back, reloading.
I don't know why
and doing that again.
I always forget, but every time I see A-10 in my head, I'm all like, oh, that's propeller plane, isn't it? I don't know why, because of how it's positioned, but it's not propeller plane. It's a jet, the jet turbines. But always in my head, even if I remember it, sometimes I always forgets it because the position it is at, right? I don't know.
Again and again and again. In fact, during some tests, one Warthog flew 17 missions in one day. And these back-to-back missions were practiced for one reason. The A-10 is the first aircraft in the US Air Force history designed and built for the sole purpose of supporting the Army's combat soldier, a role commonly referred to as CAS, or Close Air Support. A good CAS aircraft needs to have 4 attributes. Maneuverability, so it can hit its targets while avoiding counterfire. Survivability, in case it gets hit from small arms or surface-to-air missiles. Staying power, so it could loiter for long periods over the battlefield. And load carrying, so it could destroy more targets during each sortie. The A-10 Warthog had all of them. But why this aircraft kept its engines running in between missions? Why its Gatling gun doesn't eject casings like normal guns do? Why the A-10 pilots have to sit inside the bathtub during flight, and why the enemy forces were relieved whenever they heard the sound of the A-10's gun is not what you think. When the A-10 was first introduced, guided munitions were at their infancy, so to hit a target accurately, especially in a CAS mission, the A-10 had to fly low and slow to have the best chance of hitting its target: communist tanks. The A-10 came into the picture during the Europe of the 1970s, where communist nations outnumbered other nations' tanks with a 2-to-1 ratio. Lucky for the European allies, the A-10's GAU-8 Gatling gun was the biggest, most accurate weapon ever fired from an aircraft that could destroy a tank's armor in a single short burst. That sound not only was appreciated by the friendly forces, knowing that someone's got their back, but
yeah, it's really insane to think about it. This is it's from the Soviet times, right? This plane. I mean, it makes sense. Soviet tanks, right? Soviets were like cranking out tanks after tanks. That's why Russia had a lot of tanks, right? Recently, it's always known that Russia has the most tank type of way because of Soviet times. They just like pumped out all the tanks. So I'm gonna screw it. We're gonna make an attack plane. Then even if it gets shot by like a tank, like machine gun or something, it can survive with the tub and everything. But obviously, in like with the Middle Eastern wars, which is like not really advanced wars, A-10s has always been like real heavyweight. Because I can already imagine scenario like there's a squad of whatever Americans or allies there. Someone got pinned down because you're not in your territory, some foreign territory. You don't know who's and where they're coming from, how many people are there, and then you call for support and you see A-10 in the sky. Like that's something, right? That's basically just mean like like guard from above has come, and also like not to mention that what is that, like cargo plane / attack fortress in the sky that circles around if need be with the howitzer and things. If you have these two things, you're a heavyweight there. You don't have to worry about nothing. Well, always in modern world I can see it like something like China or like some major power with enough defenses under their belt. A tank might be not that great, might get shot down because it's not that fast. Even though it's it has good protection, it can be protected against like some missiles and things. So I can see how A-10 wouldn't work there, but yeah, A-10 would still work in some places, right?
But also by the enemy, because if they could hear the gun, it meant they were not the target. At least not just yet. But the gun wasn't the only tank killer weapon on the Warthog. The aircraft could also carry imaging infrared Maverick missiles, called IIR for short. The IIR was an air-to-surface missile that could literally see in the dark, making it ideal for night use or in marginal weather conditions. Instead of using visible light, the camera used the heat generated by the target to build a video feed that was displayed on a small screen inside the cockpit. This helped the pilot pinpoint the targets even in the dead of night and destroy them effectively, a strategy that worked well for the A-10 Warthog. And if you're also a fan of military strategy games, you should check out Conflict of Nations, the sponsor of this video. Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game where you can choose a real country and lead it through World War III. You can use anything from tanks and fighter jets to nuclear submarines to build your military and engage in battles against up to 128 other players. Your neighbors could be your enemy, or you could make alliances. The choice is yours. These are real-time, long-term strategy games that can take weeks to complete. This game is fully cross-platform, so you can play Conflict of Nations with the same account.
You just said it takes a week to complete. It's a real-time type of, not real-time, but basically takes that long time. I mean, you can finish a war in a week, so not real-time, but still the scale is insane. So you're telling me this is like one of those games where you just like play, barely go to sleep, log on back, and just like get back to it. This is insane. I mean, I remember as a kid, like playing certain online games, they were too competitive, used to play all night. Even Counter-Strike, I remember playing with my friends, just like staying up all night and shit.
On both PC and mobile devices. And we bring you an exclusive gift. Click on the link in the description to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. This offer is only available for 30 days, so don't miss out. Equally as impressive as the weapon systems was the rate at which the A-10 could fly missions back to back. During one test, the aircraft flew 17 times back to back in a single day. Yes, one aircraft, but 8 different pilots, which switched places in between missions. During those 17 simulated missions, the aircraft only accumulated 3 minor maintenance write-ups, none of which were serious enough to interfere with conducting further missions. I
don't get that. I'm pretty sure I remember someone saying in one of the videos that A-10 is being like put down because it's also like maintenance to all the ratio is kind of high, right? Like how much it plane actually cost, like how much you need to maintain it. This doesn't make sense type of way. If that's the case, if you just like did 2-3 maintenance per 17 different type of like flights, how is that high? Like I know Blackbird was basically was like a Lego or something, right? It got destroyed every single time you take a flight and had to go through major maintenance every single time. But I get it, like that's an extreme example. But still, like 3 is nothing.
Turnaround time on the ground was also mind-boggling. The average ground time was less than 11 minutes if only bombs had to be reloaded. When both fueling and arming was required, it took less than 20 minutes. To minimize ground time, the engines were left turning the whole time. This not only saved time, but also minimized potential engine problems that could have come up during the engine restart. Normally, the munition crew would wait for maintenance to be done and then take the aircraft to a bomb loading area. But in this case, there were 2 munition load crews assigned to each aircraft, and they did their work in the maintenance area, while the maintenance crew were servicing the aircraft. These actions may seem insignificant, but shaving off as little as 15 minutes from that total turnaround time could have a real impact at the front lines.
Yeah, for a major war where like numbers are everything, right? But that's the problem. Whenever a major war breaks out, everything becomes a numbers game, which is like inhumane in a way. People see everything as number, which is kind of fucked up, but that's how it becomes. And in that type of scenarios, yes, it would matter a lot, right? Like instead of 15 minutes, if it takes 30 minutes, that's an insanely big gap. I mean, in warfare, 15 minutes is a lot of things, right? In 15 minutes, you can do a lot of things, like fast plane, attacking certain area. 15 minutes is a lot, so that would accumulate.
During combat, the A-10s would fly to the target, attack it several times, return to the field, rearm, and take off again. Now multiply that 15-minute time saving by the 17 sorties flown by a single A-10. And that adds up to 4 hours and 15 minutes saved by each aircraft per day, or 6 extra missions that could be flown. To the GIs on the ground, this can be the difference between life and death. Reloading the Gatling gun with 800 rounds took less than 16 minutes. Initially, this reloading process could only be done manually. That was until a specially designed machine, nicknamed the Dragon, was introduced, which could load and unload 1,350 rounds in under 10 minutes. You heard that right, load and unload, because the gun doesn't eject the casings as it fires the round. The primary reason for not ejecting the casings has nothing to do with reducing the risk of them being ingested into the engine.
Yeah, there was a movie in Bollywood basically in past 2 or so years, which basically had this kind of makeshift type of thing with a lot of bullet and like multiple machine guns and shit, like miniguns, 3-4 machine gun, this kind of like a makeshift type of thing that look like that system, right? But that system is basically to load, unload. This thing also had a machine gun. I could imagine somebody in Hollywood make some badass gun like that, 3-4 miniguns attached to it with that kind of a like a loading, unloading mechanism built into it. It's the part of the thing. You sit in a chair type thing and it's just like, yeah, that would look so cool, right? It's just like too many ammunition because that's his job, right? Loading and unloading.
Engines or damaging the aircraft. It's because of their weight. The casings act as ballast for the center of gravity of the aircraft. If the empty shells were to be ejected, it could throw off the A-10's center of gravity. So instead, the casings from the fired rounds are cycled back into the gun's rotating drum and collected within the gun's housing. It's only when the A-10's gun is reloaded on the ground that the spent casings are offloaded, which is done simultaneously as the live rounds are being loaded in. The A-10
that in itself makes this gun one of the most advanced guns on the planet, because usually guns are really basic when you really think about it, right? You put casing in, casing like flies out. That's how guns work. This thing has a mechanism to collect all those shell casing and has a proper loading, reloading mechanism system that seamlessly does that. That makes it the most advanced, like gun or like machine gun on the planet.
A-10 is a big aircraft with a wingspan of almost 59 feet. These large wings give it the ability to fly at low speeds and have great maneuverability, but also more room to hold up to 16,000 pounds of underwing bombs and rockets. The thing is, in getting up close to the enemy forces in order to engage with them, the pilot and the airplane are inevitably put in the range of enemy fire. So, as a survivability measure, the A-10 was designed to survive several hits that would bring down most other aircraft. Warthog could in fact fly with one engine, half of the tail, one elevator, and half of a wing missing. The fuel tanks were also self-sealing, meaning that if hit...
Basically like the planes of the old from World War eras, right? Which were made as this kind of like protected tub, the P, what was that P lightning thing that I just watched Fat Tuition video on. Planes like that, right? Whose mates to like dogfighting supposed to absorb like attack, even if it's like half of the plane is missing, somehow can still land, right? That type of, but more advanced. Nowadays planes are not like that because they don't have to. Fast plane, you're not supposed to get hit. So there is no tub and things that basically make it heavy, right? It's just like basically it's a perfection flying machine with weapons on it. That's what usually planes are nowadays. But A-10 basically is different. But then again, A-10 is really old, like 50 plus years old, right? So yeah, this is the plane of old. But I still think like there is a place for plane like this in today's world. So they might, like either remake it or like modify it in a way.
By bullets, fuel wouldn't leak. Another unique feature of the Warthog was the landing gear. After takeoff, the undercarriage would be retracted into the fuselage like most other airplanes, but part of the wheels would continue to protrude outside the belly. This was done by design. Once the mission was over, in case the landing gear couldn't be deployed due to damage or hydraulics failure, the A-10 would be forced to do a belly landing, also known as a gear-up landing. Having parts of the wheels outside meant that the airplane could still roll on its belly rather than skid, which would minimize the damage. Now that all sounds great, but it wouldn't bring the aircraft back if the pilot had been shot. Which brings us to the bathtub. The cockpit and parts of the flight control system in the A-10 Warthog are protected by 1,200 pounds of titanium aircraft armor, referred to as the bathtub, because it looks like one. This armor has been tested to withstand hits from 23mm cannon fire and high explosives. Without the bathtub, the A-10 would have been eaten. As a close air support aircraft, it's not unusual for the A-10 to operate from airfields close to the front lines, which oftentimes means makeshift forward air bases, where availability of maintenance crew and equipment is limited. For this reason, the airplane was designed to be easy to service and maintain in order to keep it flying. That said, the A-10 does have an unusual look, and I mean beside the nose art. The A-10's nose landing gear, instead of being in the middle, is off to the side. See, that iconic brrrt sound generates such a powerful recoil that can cause the airplane to veer off target. Unless the gun could be positioned in a way that the force of the recoil was exactly aligned with the center line of the aircraft. This meant the gun had to be placed near the center, with the shooting barrel, which is this one, accurately aligned with the center line. So the nose gear was pushed to the side to make room for the gun's center stage, similar to how the advancements in military technology since the 1970s are now pushing the A-10 Warthog off the stage. The A-10 is now obsolete, and for two reasons. First, to destroy ground targets, aircraft no longer need to strafe enemy positions with guns. There are simply better platforms to do this job. If the target is a tank, man-portable anti-tank systems like Javelin can easily take care of it. And the prevalence of precision-guided munitions means that you could hit a target from much higher altitudes and with far better accuracy. And of course, there are a variety of...
Yeah, but again, if there is a major war and you need a suppressing fire of a certain thing that constantly put pressure in a certain area and just bombard that place with the gunfire, you need A-10, right? And like it said, like it can do what, 16 sorties or whatever with just 2-3 maintenance. You can, every 20 minutes, you have multiple planes. You can have one area under suppressing fire constantly and put to pressure and things if need be, right? I mean, obviously precision guided things are always there. But, it's like people have this tendency like, over technological stuff is just better. So like ignore every commonsensical and like real grounded things. usually that turns bad, right? And America is usually good at that, realizes what is the use of something, even if it feels primitive and like really old, but if it works and it's just grounded, America usually uses it, even if they have some advanced things there, because you can't rely on advanced thing all the time, right? Everything is a failure rate or something, right? So I don't think A10, even if they're saying it's going to be obsolete, it's not going to be. Like they say the F-22, like let's not order it. Then they're like, oh wait a minute, we need F-22. Wars are breaking out. By the way, we need 6th generation plane now. So A10 is going to be something like that. Either they're going to modify it or keep it.
Of unmanned aerial systems that can be weaponized to do the job. But the second reason is even more damning. The A-10's armor may have been sufficient to protect it against anti-air guns of the 1970s, but the same cannot be said today, where manpads can easily drop a slow and low-flying airplane out of the sky.
That's true.
Add to that modern and sophisticated surface-to-air missiles that could even target faster airplanes flying at much higher altitudes, and the A-10 simply has no chance. Don't get me wrong,
yeah, that is true. I mean, javelins and all the anti-air missiles and things, like all the proper, modular type, that you can just snap it behind a truck type of system, which basically can take out something slow as A-10. Yeah, that makes sense, right? But yeah, in some scenarios where you don't have to worry about things like that, obviously in against advanced country, that will be a case. But in some scenarios where you don't have to worry about that case, A-10 can be, yeah. But then again, like which country are not gonna have, like, countries like even in Middle Eastern countries have like not javelin, but a drone type technology nowadays that can like basically sneak up to anything and destroy it. So yeah, even in Middle East things are becoming slightly more advanced. So yeah.
Get nothing against the A-10. It's just that anything has a shelf life, and the US Air Force recognizes this, which is why it plans to retire the A-10 fleet for good by 2030, if not earlier. In fact, some of the A-10s have already been shipped to the boneyard, where they'll be stored for parts, possibly used in experimental projects, and ultimately sold for scrap. As for the A-10's replacement, it seems to be the F-35. 2 squadrons of F-35As are projected to replace the A-10s at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia in fiscal year 2027. That said, other bases, like the Gowan Field Air National Guard Base in Idaho, will be getting F-16s. What I don't know is when we're gonna see another aircraft with such a menacing look. That's Indiana Air National Guard's A-10, which was painted with a two-tone black and gray color scheme, and of course, a snakehead nose art. Because there is nothing more epic than quenching the thirst of a gun-wielding black snake as she wreaks havoc from the sky. Play Conflict of Nations absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. I still think like you can modify A-10, right? I mean, look at what is it, T-14 Armata and like Abrams X concept, which has this smoke screen. Basically, all the problems tanks run into, which they're trying to solve it. You can apply that to A-10. You can create system which can deflect like incoming missiles and things like, deflecting heat, type of way, smoke and whatever, right? There's many systems like T-14 Armata uses and like Abrams X uses, right? You can apply that to Warthog. You can create a stronger hull to absorb damage, and you can still use it, because I don't think F-16 can be slow enough like A-10 to be a support plane like that. I don't know, right? And yeah, I think certain jobs that A-10 does, and like that Flying Fortress thing does, what is it called, C something, right? Cargo plane, but it's like attack plane now, A something, right? Certain jobs that they do can't be done by something else. Like, yeah, sure, you rely on like something being too fast and like just missile and go, but sometimes you need to be there for a longer time. Sometimes you need suppressing fire for a longer time. Everything's not always surgical, right? And yeah, you just need to create a stronger version of this, maybe, but I don't know. Right, well, that was the aircraft that doesn't eject bullet cells, A-10 Warthog by channel. Know what you think. If you like my reaction, do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.